The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. You have joined American Society of Quality, Human Development and Leadership webinar. Our topic today is the evolution of the customers. With me is Brooks, and our today's speaker is Rick Daniel. And going through a little bit of housekeeping. On the right side, you can see a chat box. Please go ahead and feel free at any time to add in your questions that you may have. And you will be on the mute button, but we will do the question answers in the very end. The webinar will be hosted for 45 minutes, and in the end, we will have 15 minutes of Q&A time. In order for you to qualify for a credit, you do have to attend the webinar for 45 minutes, and an email will be sent to you that you can use as a proof to qualify for your credit. So I'm going to be giving the mic over to Rick to introduce himself and share his thoughts on evolution of the story. Rick, all yours, please.
All right, great. And thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming to this seminar and webinar for us here today. My name is Rick Denley, and I'm the principal owner of Peak Performance Leadership, where we work with individuals to make them the best leaders they can be and help organizations break through their growth ceiling through many means and tools and best practices. So today we'll talk about evolution of the customer and how things have changed over the many, many years that we've been working with organizations and sales. Now, evolution of the customer, as we can see here, really goes through many different areas, and let's have a look at some of them now. Curious to know, and our first real poll for today is, how many people know that song?
So there is a poll open for all the attendees. How many people know this song? Please go ahead and choose as yes and no.
Now, the more interesting part for us, though,
Awesome. We already collected 100% of the responses.
is how many people not only know this song, but lived this song. Because if you live this song, you're of a specific generation.
So, Rick,
and the generation more than likely are into the baby boomers, so we welcome you here.
Rick,
that's a big part of this right now. So the people that lived in that generation have certain aspects of their makeup and decision-making process as well. And we're going to have a look at that shortly today. Kieran, do we have any results on that first poll?
Yeah, the answer is 63% of them knew the song. Rick, you're with me?
Kieran, how are we doing on that poll?
63% of
yes, I am. How are we doing with that poll?
63%.
Okay, wonderful. That's good that we know that song from the past. Thank you for polling in on that. See, that song was released in 1966 by The Who. And we're going to talk a little bit about different generations. So if you did know that song or even lived that song, you could be from a generation called the baby boomers. So that's one area we're going to look at. Here's another one, a quick survey for us as well. How many people used one of these in the workplace? And in case you're unfamiliar, that's a dial phone, a dial-up phone. How many of you remember those? And I don't mean from your parents' house or your grandparents' house in the basement, but how many actually used that? Let's see if we can create a poll on that as well.
So please go ahead and answer with yes and no again. I'll give it another 5 seconds.
Sure. Let's see how many people actually remember the use of one of these compared to what we have nowadays.
There you go. The answer is 52% answered as no and 48% said yes.
Wow, okay, thank you. I'm understanding the audience today very quickly based on generation. Thank you. Now, the next question for us and poll as well, who remembers these? Anybody remember what these were for? Yeah, that's also a phone. Happens to be hanging on a wall. Curious how many people remember putting dimes into one of these to make phone calls. I used to drive around with my ashtray full of them. In fact, it moved into quarters fairly quickly as well to make phone calls back to the office so I could get my messages prior to voicemail. So who remembers this as well? Karen, how do we look?
People are still responding, so I'm going to give them another few seconds.
Good.
Awesome. So we're going to be closing the poll now. And the answer is 78% answered as yes.
Yeah, okay. Great. Good to see some people out there of my generation as well. That's excellent. Thank you. And then finally, who used one of these smartphones at some point today? And I know the answer to that one. We don't need a poll for that. I'm going to be pretty sure it's very close to 100%. So that's the second area that I'm going to look at today. We'll talk about generations and their impact on the evolution of the customer and also technology. These are the two key areas we'll focus on today. So when we talk about organizations, I mentioned earlier that peak performance leadership, we help individuals and companies grow. Now, growth is something that we all have in common from our own standpoint in our careers, personal lives, and certainly with the businesses that we bring value to on a regular basis. So we're going to talk about how these two factors can be influenced correctly so that we all grow. Let's look at some driving forces here. Most companies are some sort of sales and marketing or service-driven organizations. And often you'll see on the wall their mission statements and their commitment. And it'll sound something like this, which has a continuous commitment to focus on our customer needs, a dedicated professional sales force, a broad, innovative product range, and strong relationships, and pride and values of our staff and people, and a superior, efficient distribution system. These might be some of the factors that your company talks about too. They may talk about core values, the importance of honesty, integrity, and openness, how trust and respect for our people so that they can be innovators and contribute, and big dedication and creativity of all our employees. And service to our customers are above all else to make everybody very customer centric. These things we have in common as organizations. We're going to look at how being customer centric can help your organization improve itself, both from the understanding of generations and also technology. Interesting, right now in the workplace, we have a very rare situation that has never been seen before, where we have at least 4 generations in the workplace. And you can see where you fall on this spectrum. You might be a baby boomer, born back in those time frames. You might be like me, which is a Gen X, born into this generation. And then the Millennials, this Generation Y that we like to talk about on a regular basis. And then the next generation coming along into the workplace, Gen Z. And each one has its own different makeup, both on the personality and personal side, as well as how they like to work for organizations and get things done. In this case, we're going to look at how their buying habits have changed and how we as organizations have to change with it if we plan to keep up with the new generations coming into the workplace. Some statistics for you from the Globe and Mail here in September, and this is in Canada locally. In 2017, the Canadian Professional Sales Association mentioned that 31% of the workforce is made up of baby boomers. And now 37% of the millennials, Gen Y, make up the workplace. So that's changing now. The face of the workplace and our customers is changing. What's even more important to look at is that 37% will be 51% by 2020, which is just over a year away. There's going to be a huge change. The rest of the baby boomers are moving out, retiring and such, and the millennials will be the largest population in the workplace. In fact, it's said that a lot of us will work for them one day if we're still in the workforce. Further regarding millennials, their buying habits are different. 38% of them purchase products on Amazon on a regular basis. Now that's 38% for the workplace, work-related products. 55% purchase all items off the internet in all different internet locations. And right now, 1 in 5 are in key decision-making roles within large organizations. And that's going to go to 3 in 5 when that 2020 marker rolls around. So we need to pay attention to this generation because they will be the majority of the decision makers buying our products and services in the future. Good friend of mine, Katie Mars, talks about leadership and customer experience. She's a consultant in this area with the Julius Group. Now, what she said in discussions with her, that these millennials in general, they've grown up being told they're great. They've been handed a lot. They need instant gratification. And that's an interesting point because we always like to say that regarding the millennials that they're entitled. It's not so much entitlement. It's the fact that the answers and everything they've ever needed have been right at their fingertips on a regular basis. That's the instant gratification part. But don't be mistaken. They do like to work for organizations that have a greater purpose. Organizations that give back to the community, that do charity work on weekends and go into charity events to support good causes. And they are willing to work hard. Their buying habits are different than other generations. They're very socially aware. Back in the day, we didn't worry about companies and where they got their products from, how they manufactured them and such. We just wanted the best quality for the best price, which they do as well. But they're socially aware, and if they find out an organization doesn't support causes that they do, whether that be social causes, the environment, and so on, then they won't buy from them. They need reassurance and guidance, though, on a regular basis, and that's where we come in as well as an older generation. So what do we do for these millennials then? Well, here's what we need to do from a business standpoint. We need to make it easy to source our products and services. Now, easy means, of course, the internet and social media. They'll often go to their friends on social media to source where they need something. An example would be my older son. He has a Labrador Retriever and needed a veterinarian when he moved recently. Well, he didn't look it up in the yellow pages or anything. He put it out on social media. Hey, I'm living here now. Can anybody recommend a good veterinarian for me? And sure enough, within an hour, he had everything he needed to progress and go to a new veterinarian and set up an appointment with a referral. Things are done differently now in decision-making with millennials. We have to look for ways to show our company's values and social awareness. Websites and other means are very important, even in social media. Don't just splash your products and services. Show other things that you do as an organization. Habitat for Humanity on weekends, for example. Food kitchens. Anything that your company does to help others and society will be important. We need to work collaboratively to solve their needs. Collaboratively. I'm of the X generation, which you probably figured out by now. Our generation was brought up on the fact that you give us a task, we'll get it done. We'll die trying. We'll do it ourselves, get out of the way, I don't need any help necessarily. That's not how this generation works. Collaboration is a way they've been taught, and we need to be sure that we address that correctly. And we need to be sure that we invest in the right digital platforms going forward, because that's how they gain a lot of their information. Okay? But is it enough just to focus on a generation? Sure, they're going to be the decision makers. 2 out of every 3 in a year and a half will be millennials in large organizations. But does that mean we can paint them all with the same brush? I shared with you briefly, that's my older son, Max, on the right with the Blue Jays shirt on, and my younger son, Evan, in the middle. Both millennials. If I were to treat them the same, I'd be making a major mistake because their personality styles dictate a lot of how they respond in the workplace and purchase products. So it's very important that we understand the differences. So what I'd like to look at now briefly is personality styles versus generations. Let's have a look for a moment. If anybody's gone through different personality style testing, such as DISC or anything similarly related, you'll know that there's major types of personalities. Usually fall into driver category, analytical, amiable, or an expressive. Now, true, we all have aspects of these different personality styles in our makeup. But in every occasion, we're dominant in one area. Understanding the area that your customers and clients are dominant in is very important, regardless of their generation. So we have to understand the personality types that we're dealing with when we're approaching somebody to purchase our products, services, our company, and in the end, building a relationship with them. Not to be disingenuous, but to be authentic and make an effort to be the personality style and approaches that they want to see to make it easier to purchase from. Because we still purchase based on relationships. Relationships are very important in purchasing, and we want to be sure that we can make the other person comfortable in what we're doing in our approach to them. Let's look at the buying behaviors of each of these personality styles briefly. If you have somebody who's an expressive type personality style, you have to be aware that they're unsure of their needs. They can be very persuasive in negotiations, but they usually require quite a bit of white paper proof. And that's, of course, after you get through the 15 or 20 minutes of how their weekend was, because they tend to be very expressive in their feelings. Amiables. Now, amiable in the word itself tells us here, very accepting. They're going to go through a very lengthy decision process. They don't make snap decisions. They'll explore every option possible and string you out and along for a long period of time if you let them. They can also be passive-aggressive. They don't like confrontation. They'll accept whatever you're saying, but they may go away and do something differently. Drivers category is a fun one for personality types. Very cutting edge, very visionary, make decisions very quickly, high demand. They want all the facts right now, and they want to move forward. I'm sure that you're thinking about individuals that you work with or potential customers right now that are drivers in the business. Yes, often they tend to be the entrepreneurs. And finally, the analytical types. Now, I know a bit about this because I happen to be a recovering engineer. That was my first degree out of university many years ago before moving into the business world. And analyticals need a lot of information and a lot of data. You have to bombard them with it. They love going over specs and comparing things. They're very economically minded. And with us helping them choose and make a decision, that's really our role with the analytical styles. So that's good to have a look at different personality styles and generations. Now let's look at the second main topic that I mentioned for today, and that's technology. Technology, as we know, has changed incredibly. In fact, I'll share with you that I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, and one of the professors talked about how quickly things are changing in technology. There's an estimated 7.7 billion people on the planet right now. 4.3 of them are connected somehow on the internet. The remainder, probably about another 80% of that, within 5 years will be connected. Another 5 billion people will be connected on the internet. That's an incredible opportunity for information to be shared, solutions to be created, and more customers and clients as well. 57% of people now go online to obtain information. They go online to get it. And I'm surprised that that number is not higher. Now, that was a few years back based on this data, so it will be higher now. A large percentage of people will do a lot of research to start with online, and it's not necessarily your website. It's from other sources. In fact, online purchasing has grown incredibly in the years right now, to the point where the majority of people here, and 34%, are buying online. And even the older generations are getting on board with this because they see the simplicity of it. So it's moving very quickly in that direction for online purchases. In fact, we're moving away from the brick and mortar to a click and order type of purchasing. Now we know, and this is a great statement that I wanted to quote, in the past, quality information was scarce and was generally communicated by trusting individuals on an as-required basis. This was the core of consultative selling. Now, I've been around since the 80s selling myself for different decades, and consultative selling itself has been around since the 70s as a concept. Now, consultative selling meant just that. If you needed information, and I was in a technical field, you needed to call me. You needed to get a hold of me so I could set up an appointment to come see you and then share this coveted technical information. That was a point around consultative selling. Then I could consult your needs and help you choose what you wanted to purchase or design and build. Well, that's all changed now. And I coined the phrase engagement shift, because the buying has changed. There's a buying engagement shift going on. Let's look for a moment at the traditional buying process. What did that look like? Well, it was very straight line, very linear. There were three core areas. There was your awareness phase, where you identified a need or an opportunity for something, and you began researching and exploring it. Then the consideration phase. You're determining your solutions and maybe selecting a vendor or products or narrowing it down. Finally, the decision phase. You'd analyze the information that you had and make a decision. Back in those days, sales got engaged very early in the buying process. You had to, remember? I had the coveted information. You had to call me so that I could share all of that information early in the buying process. Information was king. Well, how does it work now? Well, purchases today are made so much differently. The modern purchase path looks like this. It takes all different routes. It's not linear. It's not straightforward left to right. And where do people get their information from? Because it doesn't follow a straight path anymore. Information is shared and interacted in many different ways. From searches, video now. They said that soon 2/3 of all information will be portrayed via video. That's huge. Get onto the video. You have to produce videos now, right? So we're out there gaining information in different ways. All right, we're purchasing in different ways. We're reading expert reviews, watching videos, going to YouTube for information. And that's how we experience brands now. The use of social media on apps, mobile apps, blogs. The expectations are much different now, how that information is acquired. So if we look at the new buying process, well, we have the similar stages to making a decision. We need to be aware and research and compare before we purchase. But look at how we're aware. We're aware from the Internet of Things, the IoT, search engines, social media. Paid per click advertising is huge. Banner ads, you see them all the time. And if you happen to shop online for something, sure enough, then all your banner ads on the right-hand side will portray things you were looking for, like a new pair of shoes. It'll pop up on a regular basis. Those are banner ads. Our research is done through videos, through blogging our friends, ebooks, articles, all of it online. So we're gaining all of that information. Comparisons are made through case studies. And then finally, we'll make that purchase. So whereas we used to get involved here early on with our information, now we're getting involved here with price. The buyer is thinking that they know everything they need to, and they're phoning you up simply for a price. How many people have heard this before? Well, I researched everything I have to. I know what I need. I just need a price. That's a very poor position to be in. That's a race to the bottom. when we're talking about price right out of the chute, because it takes away all of our ability to sell and to show our value that we can bring an organization through our products and services. We need to find a way to bring it back in the sales cycle, bring it back earlier and get more engaged and involved. And that's what we look to do. So how do we do that? Well, we do that through different selling approaches. Now that we know we're dealing with different generations, we're dealing with different personality styles that make buying decisions in different ways now. We have to adapt to it. And how have we done that? Well, in the past, we looked at bundling our products together. That was one thing. Complementary products to each other. We didn't just sell our products. Solutions. We created solutions around things. And that involved bundling of other products and then combine them all. Consultative piece came along so that we would consult with them and make sure that they're getting everything that they wanted correctly, the right solution. If anybody's familiar with spin techniques, that's Neil Rackham. And what he talked about there is creating the situation, understanding the problem, and then the implication of the problem, and then the need payoff. And that was your spin approach to selling. And then finally, nowadays, we look at things and we call it challenger selling. And we talked about this earlier. Challenger selling is professionally, politely, properly challenging the individual who comes and says, I have all the information I need. I know what I need to purchase. And challenging them and pushing back a little bit to say, maybe you don't, and let me show you why. And that's not an easy skill to obtain, but it is doable. And that's what I both coach and teach as well in the sales front. Dr. Shimi Kang, a Harvard-trained Canadian psychiatrist, psychologist, spoke about the one skill that we need for survival. And she was talking about in general, not just in the business world, but in general, about how we survive as businesses, organizations, and such. I'll give you a minute to think about what you think that one skill for survival might be. Well, if you said adaptability, that's what Dr. Shimi Kang talks about. Adaptability. And adaptability is so important to us. If we do things the way that we used to do, we'll get what we used to get all the time. That's not what we're after here. We need to adapt and change and adjust ourselves. That won't only help us survive, that will help us thrive. So look at a success formula. I mentioned earlier I'm a recovering engineer, so I can't get away from formulas all the time. So I created one which I want to share with you now. One of the things that we need to be successful is knowledge. And we need knowledge of not only our own products and services, of the competition, of the marketplace, knowledge of the needs that are up and coming for our clients. And we have to look in a crystal ball for those. So knowledge is very important to us. We also need talent and skills. The difference between talent and skills, talent you're born with. Skills anyone can develop. And that's where people can excel and learn. People can be born talented, but not be the most successful. We also need to hone and learn new skills on a regular basis. As well, we need tools. We need the right tools to help us get to where we need to be. If we're going to build something big, we need the right construction tools. If we're going to do assessments on organizations and help them, we need the right tools to do that as well. If we're going to run an organization correctly, we need tools, whether it be the enterprise system, the CRM, the customer relationship management piece is very important nowadays to track and understand our customers. So tools are very important as well. But all of these things, without the following, really won't mean anything in our success formula here in dealing with customers. We need effort on a regular basis. We need attitude and we need desire. I've often consulted and coached with organizations now, and we've talked about the importance of not focusing on a resume when somebody's applying for a job. Everybody's resume is going to be similar. They're going to have similar skills and successes, and that's fine. We need to hire based on effort, attitude, and desire. I can teach and coach people skills. They can gain knowledge. They can learn how to use tools correctly. But without effort, attitude, and desire, you're going nowhere. So that's my success formula for you. In fact, it's defined very well in a book called Grit. And this will be my book sharing for this webinar as well. An excellent read for you. It's by Angela Duckworth, and it's called Grit. And through her years, an examination of organizations, people, talented people, everybody from business people through actors. Will Smith is in her book. And she talks about the fact that it burns down to two main things: the power of passion and perseverance. That's what creates grit and makes people successful. So I share that with you because it is part of the success formula. One other thing to keep in mind, and I'll share this with you: 10 things that require zero talent. And remember, I mentioned to you, talent is something we're born with. You can't change that. If we could, I'd be in the NHL. Hockey's one of my passions. It was for decades. But I'm no Sid Crosby. I wasn't born with the talent. Oh, I worked on the skills and the passion was there. But without the talent, I wasn't fortunate enough. But here's what we can do without that talent too. We can be on time. We can create a strong work ethic for ourselves and others around us. We need to put in the effort. Body language is so important. When you look at the three main areas of communication, when you look at words, what we say in communicating, our body language and such, body language has the highest percentage impact. Over 60% of our communication is through body language. Energy level, you have to have a high energy level to be successful. Bring the right attitude, hire based on attitude. Have somebody that's passionate. Being coachable is something I look for. The number one thing when I get asked, what do I look for when I'm hiring people? There's number 6, 7, and 8. Attitude, passion, and being coachable so that I can teach, coach, and they will learn. Make sure you go the extra mile, and being prepared is also extremely important in success. So how do we keep the existing clients that we have? We have a strong customer base now, but attrition rates are like putting a large hole in your funnel of opportunities. Oh, you can keep pouring in as many opportunities in the top of that funnel as you like. But if you've got holes throughout it and you're losing your existing client base, you're losing business. Let's have a look at why customers leave a company. The number one reason customers leave a company is because they believe you don't care about them. It's not because they're so dissatisfied in your service. It's not because they got persuaded or pulled away to a competitor. It's because we haven't given them the care that they need and the attention that they need. So keep that in mind. Customer retention is extremely important. Why should you care about that? Well, if you're looking to achieve better conversion rates, work with your existing customers. If you're looking to lower the cost of your marketing, work with your existing customers. They don't need marketing to pull them over. They know your company and how good you are. It'll help you increase profits as well, because a 5% increase in customer retention can increase a company's profitability by 75%. Look at that for a minute. All companies want to become more profitable. If I said to you, we can increase your company profitability by 75% just by retaining, right, an extra 5%. I'm sure you'd be on board with that. And as salespeople, sales organizations know it's far easier, 50% easier to sell to existing customers than to brand new ones. Make sure that you're maximizing your share of wallet. And in share of wallet, we're talking about the fact that you are selling everything you possibly can to that customer. It's why when you go on Amazon and order a product, it will try and see if it can tie other products to it as well. By the way, did you know that we have this? It couples good with what you just purchased. And they'll try and bundle that. When you go to a home improvement center and you buy something, they'll ask if you would like extended warranty, if you would like service to install that. These are all added things in Share a Wallet that you can do to help retain your client as well. 80% of your company's future revenue will come from just 20% of your existing customers. It's a Pareto principle. We've heard it before, but it's true repeatedly. I've gone into companies and researched their organization. 80% of their business comes from 20% of their customers. Make sure that you throw a blanket over those customers and you're looking after them tremendously well. You cannot afford to lose them. That's very important to keep your clients. And retention versus acquisition costs, look at the difference. 6 to 7 times more expensive to gain more customers through your marketing, your salespeople out on the road, your campaigns. So retain your clients. So, Rick, you ask, how do we do that? I've given you some examples, but stay in constant contact with them. There's so many means now. There's so many touch points that you can have with your clients. Make sure you're maximizing all of them. Yes, in person is important for that 20% that brings in 80% of your revenue. Utilize electronic means, social media, referrals. Everything needs to be captured. Create valuable content so they want to come back and look at it. For people directly communicated with your customers, become an authority in your field. They will always want to see you. Their door will always be open if you're an authority and you bring them value. And as well, get back to them quickly. Don't give them the opportunity to search out somebody else. Value their input by listening. If you're not doing surveys on your top companies right now, and it's so easy to do electronically through apps like SurveyMonkey, small apps that you can take in and say, look, we value your business. We want to be sure we're on track. Can I ask you a few questions? Of course they're going to. They want you to be the best you can be to help them out. Identify opportunities proactively. You're an industry expert now. Make sure you help them out properly. And a huge way to retain your clients is fix problems quickly. In sales, in any type of sales and working with organizations, I used to love a problem. Give me a problem. Give me an opportunity to show my mettle. Let me show you how good we are at fixing your problems. When you fix somebody's problems, they're much more inclined to stay with you. Even though they had a problem, they knew you would solve it and look after it. That's what matters to them more than anything. 70% said that even though they'd had problems with an organization, they're going to stay with them because they solved it in the manner that they anticipated. So that's very important to us. Now look, we're always searching for new ways to retain clients. An evolution of the customer that we're talking about here is something to keep in mind, right? They're very important factors to it. Keep your customers first above all else. Don't get pulled away in the minutia of other things going on. Your customer comes first. Without them, you're nothing. Uncover and discover. Uncover new opportunities with your clients. Discover different ways to work with them, better ways to work with them. They're changing, and we know the one thing that we need to be is adaptable to their change. Solve issues for them, solve problems, take things on. I would always welcome somebody into my organization, vendor or otherwise, that could solve issues for me and act on them. That way, you're going to retain more and more of your client base. Very, very important for us. So we know the importance now of retaining our clients. We know that looking at generations and beyond the generations to the actual personality styles is very important. We know as well that we have to address and embrace technology to its maximum. I'll mention something. People have strategies for sales, strategies for marketing. Do you have a strategy for social media? You should. You absolutely should. If you don't, put your emphasis on that. And by the way, we're not the ones to do it necessarily. I'm not a social media guru. I can pick up on it. I've learned some things. Hire people that are. And I'll guarantee you 9 out of 10 of them are going to be in the millennial generation, and that's a good thing. Because those are the people that are buying now. So don't be afraid of that. Staff up accordingly. Okay, so remember with generations, address newer generations' buying preferences and methods. Build, champion, diversified teams to harness the strengths of different generations and personality styles. Don't hire people that you love because you get along with them well, because they're like you. Diversify your team. Challenge yourself. You've been told before, don't be the smartest person in the room. Embrace shared values, not differences. Yes, throughout the different generations and personality styles, things differ. Don't look into what differs. Figure out what is shared amongst them. Focus on those, and you'll have winning teams and environments. Engage earlier in the buying process. Remember how we talked about that? That happens through technology. We have to collaborate to meet our customer needs. And that happens a lot in the digital platform. We have to include all aspects of customer service, not just portions of it. And we have to make everything we do, our product solutions and services, very visible on the internet, on the IoT, on social media. That's how purchases are made now, and make it very easily accessible to everybody on the devices that we have now and the ones that are coming in the future as well. All different areas. And be prepared for that next technology. It's coming. Be aware of it. Did you know that the next generation, 5G, is coming our way? And 5G, for instance, will have the bandwidth to download an entire movie onto your device, whether it be your phone, tablet, computer, in 1 second. Yeah, let me repeat that, 1 second. So information will be incredibly fast to get a hold of. We won't be held back at all. So listen, I want to thank you. There were some sharings there in different areas, and I hope that you found some of the information valuable. I hope that I emphasized to you the importance of addressing the changes that are happening in our customers. Right now they exist, and in 2 years they're going to be huge. And we need to be at the forefront of that, not responding late, or you'll be left out of the game. So keep that in mind going forward. I hope this was informative for you. I suppose now what we could do is open it up to some questions if we have any coming in.
Yeah, we do. So thank you, Rick. This was incredible. Really, really great information. Love the part
Thank you.
how you related with millennials. Like, it is so important when we're talking about differences between generation, and not to take that as negative and pick on the goods and bad, but to see it as a total overall strength and combine the two together. And
Right,
how
very good. Yeah.
right, and how the right expertise, like, I think that is something we are already seeing in the new hirings. They don't want to kind of try to do everything on their own. They love delegating to the right people and let the
Right.
expertise do the stuff, and not just because somebody's your friend or a part of your family or somebody you knew in golf course and you're just asking them to do the stuff.
Great,
So,
Karen. Right on.
and there's some fabulous questions coming up. I encourage everyone to kind of share their thoughts so that we can brainstorm over the next few minutes. One of the question Holly has, she's looking for clarification that where's the data from the customers leaving a company?
Where do we obtain that data from?
Yeah.
Okay, those are different studies and surveys that have been done. What I can do is get you that information. We can post it. Can it be posted on your website or my website? We can do that
Yeah,
if
sure.
that's what they're looking for.
Holly, if you want to send an email, you can shoot us an email. We'll reply back to you once Rick has given us the information as well. Then moving on to the next one, Corey is asking, with the acquisition for new customers, is that a tax deductible?
Is it tax deductible for acquiring new
Acquisition
customers?
for new customers, yeah.
Okay, that's definitely going to be something which is different based on your region and your country.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm not an accountant in that area, so that might be something you want to research more locally.
It's a business expense.
The
So
business expense, Brooks,
yeah.
okay.
And
Yeah.
In
and
that case, then you can write off the business expense.
yeah, and just like Rick said, it would vary from the type of transaction that was done, and also the location and the rules and regulation of that area as well. Another question from Derek is there an evidence that multiple touch points within an organization improve retention? I would say yes. His example is that if company A is only interacting with vendor account teams, whereas company B interacts with account teams, operations, and all other departments internally at multiple layers of organization, does that help in improving retention?
Yeah, you know what? I would agree with you. I'm sure that we can find the data and research on that. When we align organizations, you want more than one single touch point, and there's several reasons for that. The first reason being that single point of contact is dangerous should that point of contact leave, either in their organization or in your organization.
Yeah.
And you want to be sure that people are aligned. I worked in a very high-tech industry, and salespeople would meet with buyers. Then we would align engineers from each organization to meet with each other, and technical people, and so on. So you had different touch points and different depth to your organization. It's very important to make sure you have more touch points and work towards that on your major accounts. You won't be able to justify it with all of your accounts, but with your major ones, you need to work towards that.
Yeah, and also that when salespeople are preaching to the client and saying all the good stuff about the service and the product, it has to portray from operations and every other touch point that is at the face of the customer so that they can validate and experience the same experience coming from every direction. And that's how it resonates with the clients as well.
Great, Karen. Yeah, agreed.
And a question from Lewis is, what is the difference between the transition generations to the transition that happened before?
Okay, sorry, can you repeat that for me?
Yeah, I'm trying to double check. What's the difference between transition generations to transition that happened before? I'm not 100% sure. I have
Not
picked that
quite sure what
question.
they're...
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Louis, if you can kind of re-comment on that so that I can ask the question again. And another question from Corey is that do not put all eggs in one basket, right? Yes, I think we definitely will all agree. And Rick can can say more on that topic.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what they're meaning, but you know, you do need to diversify, that's for sure. You don't want all your eggs in one basket, whether it comes to your customers, and certainly not as well in the people that make up your organization. You want to be sure that you've diversified extremely well to cover off all bases. Although I spoke specifically about millennials this time around, you're right. I mean, we need to be aware of all the different generations that are in the workplace, thus the sharing of their different buying habits by tradition.
Yeah. And the next question is, what are the two best generations that are most likely to naturally collaborate?
To naturally collaborate? That's a very good question. Yeah, very good question. What you'll find is that there's commonality in each of the generations, surprisingly. And what I found is that sometimes even you get generations that jump a bit that collaborate better, because if you look at human nature personality-wise and generations, my kids, for instance, that are in the workforce now, get along extremely well with their grandparents, my parents, which is an older generation. And that's because I represent their parents. And they'll see that in my makeup as well, even in the workplace. And that'll come out as, boy, that's just like my parents talk to me, but you talk to me differently. But look for commonality. You'll find it in everything. It really comes down to you changing and adapting your style. I work extremely well with millennials because I give them what they need. They need space, they need respect, and they need opportunities to collaborate. And I give them that. It's different than me, but I give them that opportunity, and then they work extremely well together.
That's all correct. And adaptability probably.
What else, Karen?
Yeah, I would say adaptability is the key component. you could see in baby boomers, people that are completely technology savvy versus people that do not like using technologies. And you would see the different generations, the newer generation, connecting with them differently. So
Right.
adaptability is a key piece. Open-mindedness, as was suggested by one of our attendees, is a great piece as well. The following question from Gloria is, what is a good tool to use to find that thing that is common? I think we have answered that.
No, what you want to look into is the different generations. Are we talking about generations, Karen, you figured, for the commonality?
Yeah. What is that thing that is common?
Okay, here's what I suggest you do. If you have a very diversified team that you want working together better, run a workshop with them. We do this on a regular basis, and the workshop will bring out the values that are important to them. And in speaking about values, remember, we need to make sure that the values of our staff align with each other, but also align with the organizational values. If you don't have organizational values, you need to create them. You need to sit down and run an exercise and go through it. And we do these workshops. And you need to go through that so that you can come up with your organizational values and make sure that you hire people that have similar values. Then you're in alignment. That alignment will make working for the organization much more enjoyable. And that's important for longevity in an organization and for people to do the best they can. So now you asked about aligning the values and things and commonalities of the people. Look for values, run a workshop, and you'll find them. You'll find out of different generations, regardless, they have same values. And it'll be interesting, and there'll be an aha moment in the room when you circle the same values from the Gen Xers and the Millennials and some of the baby boomers that are still around. Then it's time to focus on those. Great exercise in team building.
Thank you. Rick, next question from George. Interesting one. Changes is happening fast, say Generation X to Z. Generation Z will join the workforce in the next 10 years and so. Any idea what we can expect after Gen Z?
No, I don't think we have a full hand.
But yeah,
coming into the workforce, so we're learning a bit about them as well. We have some descriptors. You can do a Google on that and find out quite a bit of information, but until they penetrate more in the workplace, it's difficult to say. And George, I wish I could predict the next generation on. I'd probably be a very well-renowned and rich man, but not the case. I think things change way too quickly. Even in the day where we used to do 5 and 10-year plans, they're just mute. They're no good at all because things change far too quickly.
Yeah, and totally agree with Rick. And I would assume that it's breaking down further. Like currently, you can see within one generation, 5-year apart, kids and teenagers, they completely act different. That all depend on the technology and what they're already being aware when they come to the world and they're moving on to the next level.
Yeah, true.
So, talking about a question from Sarah, do these strategies extend to B2B sales, and do millennials buyers for businesses have a different strategy than the current Gen X we should adapt to?
Well, definitely we did talk about their buying style differs from ours, being Gen X. It definitely does, and we talked about some of the areas there and the social media that they utilize to make decisions. Interesting point is, if you asked about them running businesses, they'll run their business the same way that they run their life, and it will be based on social media for input and information. The decisions they make to purchase their pet food will be the same ones that they make to purchase their major products and things for their organization. It all wraps up into one. Nice part about this generation too is that they don't adhere to the old rules. I used to have the older generation being at their desks at 7 a.m. till 5, and that's a good work day. Millennials don't do that, and the older generation may say, well, boy, that must have been a nice lunch, hour and a half. Yeah, but what they don't know is that they went home, and on the streetcar on the way home, they spent half an hour doing work-related things. We're with their significant others, pets, whatever it is, for a couple hours, then they're back online again. And the work melds with their personal lives. There's no definition in it anymore. And that's what we have to be aware of.
Yeah. One more last question for you, Rick, from Corey. The change, can utilizing this type of adaptability process, so I think he's referring to the adaptability process pointers that you had in one of your slides.
Yes.
How much would this be beneficial?
To adapt to that, it's very, very important, Corey. Thank you. Good question. Why we need to adapt to it is because if we don't get involved and engaged in the buying process earlier, it comes down to price. Remember how that price arrow was down the bottom? And then it's a race to the bottom. And now you're opening the door to competitors globally that can manufacture, produce products and services cheaper than you. You don't want it to be just about price. So we need to get in the decision process earlier with them again. And how we do that, we talked about utilizing technology to get the word out about our product and information so that it can be there and be readily accessible as well for information requests. You'll often go online. I was car searching 6 months ago, and I went online and I was car searching at odd hours of the morning, not regular business hours, and I had a pop-up, and it was a chat box, and it had somebody's picture, whether it was them or not, I don't know, and it said, well, you know, if you want to chat or learn more about this, you know, chat with me now. And I thought, okay, I will. I got a live person on the other end who helped guide me in some of the questions I had in my decision process. And of course, that was for a particular manufacturer, so that helped my decision process a lot. They were visible and had information readily available to me 24/7. So it wasn't just on my own ideas. I gained that information from them because it was accessible. They made it readily accessible to me. So yeah, definitely, Corey, get yourself earlier on in that buying cycle by getting your information more accessible on the internet.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rick. Very informative. And thank you to all the audience that are with us today for the questions and for attending it. Make the journey really incredible.
Visit your website, my website here on the screen for more information and as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rick. Excellent presentation.
Before I explain how you can get credit for tonight's webinar, I would like to thank Rick as well as our organizers who helped with the webinar. Today's presentation and recording will be posted on our website. There were a few questions on that. Yes, the presentation and the recording will be posted on our website within 48 hours and YouTube channel sometime this week. Our next webinar will be on November the 7th in Spanish with Mr. Jose Gilberto, and November 14th in English with Mr. Joe Fierro. Registration can be done on our website, www.asqhdnl.org. And to get automatic notification on future webinars, you can follow our LinkedIn page or sign up for our newsletter through our website. We would highly appreciate that you fill a 1-minute survey that will pop up on your screen as soon as you close the webinar. And for those who are attending over the phone call, you will receive a follow-up email within an hour from us. For those of you who attended at least 40 minutes, you will receive a separate email in addition to the follow-up email within this week, and you can use that to claim your credit. So once again, I thank you all for your time today, and we look forward to have you on our next webinar. Thank you.